Um, yeah, I guess we can get started, maybe with some introductions. Do you want to kick it off, Rahul?
Well, very nice to meet everybody and great to be here on panel. Thanks, Steve, for inviting me. My name is Rahul. I am a founder of a company called AI Hero. Yi and I go a few years back where we actually met in a hackathon. So I think it was 2019. He remind me if I'm mistaken. It was the first wave of hackathons with the chatbot era, and we built Mr. Miyagi along with Yulia and a few others. Mr. Miyagi helped people just navigate life challenges as if you remember from the movie. And so we got to the finalist round, and that's where I kind of got hooked on to hackathons. Earlier this year, Alex and I turned out to be in the same hackathon. There was an emergency hackathon in San Francisco when I think OpenAI released its APIs. And Alex and I were finalists in that. Alex obviously won. I'll let him speak about it. Alex and his team won. Amazing team work there. And then I took part in multiple other hackathons, won a couple of them myself. And I really wanted to join the panel and speak on how exciting an opportunity it is for anybody participating in a hackathon to learn and not just participate passively. One of the ideas that I got from the hackathon myself, I converted into a product or a tool that I wanted to show, not because I'm pitching the tool, so feel free to ignore the tool part of it, but I definitely want to show you guys how cool Streamlit has been as I use it. So this is a tool called PromptCraft, and in this case we are going to create a LLM completion for English to Japanese. So the moment I change my prompt template, the variant gets automatically saved. You can see all your variants online. You can use a variant that you previously had of your prompt in the future. And then this also allows you to plug in any of these variables that you've added in and try to complete it. What I love about Streamlit here is there is a gotcha aha moment for me was you could use Streamlit in a progressive app manner. So if you change stuff on the left or on the top of the page, everything bottom changes. Here you can see I added something. We are adding some tests. The tests run automatically as well, and you can see them in the UI and compare tests and make the right call about your prompt and iterate on the prompt. So again, not a tool plug, just showing you how awesome it was for me to use Streamlit. And some ideas like this can come out of a hackathon. That's it.
Cool. And Rahul, how many have you been to now?
Oh, I have, it's gotten slow recently because I have a fatigue of hackathons. The most recent one I attended was in, I think, last month, and almost one every month, a couple of every month.
And you've also organized. You've been a finalist many times. You've done a bunch of presentations.
Yeah, that's right. So I have organized a hackathon for the MLOps community. I am a local organizer here in San Francisco. We have a few meetups coming in. So if you guys are interested in learning more about LLM ops and MLOps, please join us.
Cool. All right. Next, we have Alex.
Hello. Super excited to be here. So love talking about hackathons. So just kind of a bit about my background. I've done hackathons since 2016. I absolutely love doing them. It's kind of like an arena where you get to take crazy ideas and then smash somewhere between 8 and 48 hours into them and just build a cool product and just validate something fast and just play around with cool technology. And over my career, I've won 16 of them, and it's not as hard as it sounds. In fact, I'll kind of give some encouragement to those in the room who come from like a less technical background. During my undergrad, I actually did not study computer science. I studied philosophy. That said, I know how to program. I think being technical definitely goes a very long way forward, but just you don't have to have like this extreme background in computer science and programming to learn how to win a project. And the one way you win these things is you replace the word project with people. And ultimately, at the end of the hackathon, you're trying to build something for people. And the way you win these things is you just talk to people, figure out what a real problem you can be solving is. And one of the wonderful things about these things is you have a lot of sponsors and you have a lot of people in the room who are basically paid to facilitate and mentor. So instead of spending all of your time working and focusing on just building product and being heads down in code, I'd highly suggest just take maybe 3 or 4 hours and just chat with people. Figure out, like, maybe you have an idea or maybe you don't have an idea, and talk with the mentors, talk with the people who know more than you do, talk with people who are from very strange industries, and kind of get an idea of the problem space. And then with that, you can formulate a hypothesis into, or am I solving something that's real, that's going to help people? Not a cool product, am I helping people? And that more often than not leads to victories. So because if you're solving your real problem and you're able to show that you've solved it, everyone's going to want to vote for you because you went out of your way to do something that's awesome. Yeah, and just kind of some cool things. I'll tell you, like, why you should do hackathons in general. I've just won a lot of very cool prizes. I'd probably say the number one was I got a job offer out of winning hackathon. And maybe tied for number one was I won a hackathon hosted by Mazda Motors, the car company. And they flew us out to Japan for half a month as a prize. So you never know what's going to happen with these things. Sometimes you get international trips, sometimes you get jobs, sometimes you get very cool credits, things like this. And there's like a lot of cool opportunities that arise from these things. So highly encourage it, talk with people. And it's a really great career booster, and you meet cool people along the way. So Rahul and I met at a hackathon, and I think you all are going to also make some great friends along the way.
Yeah, and just quick interjection there. I also got my job at a hackathon, so it's more common than you think. Great advice, Alex. So next we'll have Caroline. She's organizing a hackathon right now. So if you're not doing something this weekend, she'll tell you all about it.
Awesome. I'm really excited to be here. Really nice to meet you all virtually. My name is Caroline. I work on developer experience for Streamlit, which, if you haven't heard of Streamlit, it is an open source Python library that allows you to create web apps directly from Python scripts. So really quickly, really easily, a lot easier to use than something like Flask or using just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, frameworks, stuff like that. So as a result, really great thing to have in your back pocket for a hackathon when time is of the essence and you want to get from your idea to a prototype very quickly. We are running an LLM focused hackathon right now. It is ending on September 19th, so you still have a little while to build something awesome and submit it. We're partnering with LlamaIndex and a few other companies for this event. There are some awesome prizes that you can win. I'm going to drop the link to the page in the chat. Definitely check it out. Take some time this weekend, build an app. Like I said, Streamlit apps are very easy to build, to get from your first line of code to a real app that you can play around with. It's super fast. So yeah, really excited to be here. I have run a couple of hackathons for Streamlit, and I also work with our community with students who are interested in running hackathons that have some type of Streamlit component in their community, at their schools, at their colleges. So if you're a student who's looking to do something similar, definitely reach out to me, send me a DM on LinkedIn, and happy to chat. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, and we're really excited to be co-hosting the Streamlit Hackathon, being one of the sponsors. If you build something cool with LlamaIndex, you're in the running for a set of new AirPods. So yeah, definitely look forward to seeing all the cool projects that come out. So my background, like I said, I actually got my job at a hackathon. I met Jerry at the, I met him at the same one that you were mentioning, Rahul, the emergency ChatGPT API hackathon that Alex won. I didn't win that, but I guess I got something out of it also. So I guess the first sort of question for you is, like, Alex, you mentioned like picking an idea, right? I think people always think about, hey, like what do we actually want to build? There's a limited amount of time, whether it's a one day or even here, it's like maybe you have a couple weekends really to build something. Like, what's your decision process when you pick an idea? Maybe Alex, you can go first, and then.
So there's kind of two strategies. The motto that they use in Boy Scouts is be prepared. So number one thing you can do is, it's kind of like, I would say unethical to pre-code during your hackathons, but it's not unethical to gather knowledge. So definitely talk with people about your ideas beforehand, maybe a week before, and just kind of float out, like, would this be a good idea? Would this be a bad idea? And visualize in your head, what would that look like? One exercise I do very frequently is when I go on walks, like I love to do evening walks, is I just kind of think about ideas. And if I can come up with one good idea or stupid idea that's like, oh, that'd be fun if it existed, I write it down to a Google Sheet, and I have this Google Sheet about 350 ideas. A lot of them are really stupid, but it just kind of like gets you in this mindset of like, oh, this would be fun to build during a hackathon, right? Like, I think I could see this happening. In lieu of that, if you don't have a big catalog of 300 ideas, what you can do is just, again, speak with mentors. So I did this one hackathon. It was the New York Maritime Innovation Hackathon. And maritime means like boats, like cargo ships. I've never even been on a boat before. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I just ended up spending like 2 hours talking to these ship captains and like logistics coordinators, just like about the problems and like the shipping industry. And just by doing that, you very quickly realize like they live in a very different world than us in technology. Technology, everything's efficient, everybody's optimizing things. Shipping, it's paper, right? It's physical paper. And you only get that sort of knowledge by actually speaking. Like, abandon your predispositions and just like validate ideas by talking to people who are the experts in the field. They're going to give you much more information than anything you can just come up with on your own. So just highly recommend, A, get the creative juices flowing, ideate way beforehand, and B, talk with people. They're going to be your best source of inspiration.
That makes sense. 300 ideas. That's a big advantage coming in. So Rahul, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to follow that. I think Alex mentioned an interesting thing, which is, some of these ideas might be stupid. To be honest, I sometimes feel like in life, when I'm working, I'm not able to try these stupid ideas, right? But when I do try the stupid ideas, I can learn something completely new, right? I can gather a skill set. So personally, even though, while on the day of the hackathon, maybe 2 hours in, I will start like honing in on, hey, how do we get winning? But eventually what I really want to take away from a hackathon is, well, what am I learning, right? And that gives me the joy of participating in a hackathon. You go and talk to people around you, see what other people are doing. You meet some really inspiring people. You can learn from what they're building, not to copy them, obviously, but like get inspired by that. Feel free to get your hands dirty on some new technology you haven't tried. A great example was in a hackathon a couple of months ago, on which Alex and I were on the team. We had another member, Sasha. I spent like 2 hours building something with Flask and an HTML, a REST endpoint. And she implemented an alternative to it with WebSockets based on her previous experience at hackathons. And that kind of, I blew my mind, like, hey, it's this simple to do WebSockets for a one-to-one kind of an app, and we completely hit it off. So that's, you learn something new by just observing and learning with people. And I think, to me, that is if you don't win the prize, which you might only have a handful of them, this is something you can definitely win in.
And Rahul, I remember when we did ours, we pivoted in the middle, right? And then I remember even at the emergency one, you were actually going around searching for ideas for a little bit.
Yeah, so let me give you a background on what I think. When we pivoted during the 2019 hackathon, it was because it was an overnight hackathon, right? Or we were working all night in Menlo Park College. And there were a couple of things we could take this to, and then based on what we hear, based on what the team is feeling, at the end of the day, you want your team to be happy, right? You don't want to be like, hey, we're just going to win, but somebody's unhappy on the team. I don't think that matters. I think democratically voted for the right thing to do. And then during the emergency hackathon, where I saw you after 3 years, I had 2 ideas that I came in with, which I wanted to try. And I think my canvassing of like, hey, who's doing what was partly for finding a teammate and partly to just be like, hey, which idea do you think will be cool? And the moment you get the public opinion of which idea would be cool to see, you can go ahead and see that, okay, there'll be some traction in at least if there's a voting round, you'll probably get some good votes from your fellow attendees.
Makes sense. And Caroline, having organized a few of these already, like, do you see any patterns in terms of which ideas tend to work better than others?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I'm looking for as a judge is uniqueness. So new ideas that we haven't been seeing in all of these projects. A good example with the LLM hackathon is a really common Streamlit app around LLMs is just using the GPT 3.5 API and kind of making a ChatGPT clone, which is great, but it's not really something new. It's something we've seen a lot. So really, when we're looking at submissions, we're looking for something that is kind of new, a new idea at least, something that really makes the judges say, oh, like, I hadn't even thought of really doing that in a Streamlit app. And then I think kind of to echo what Alex was talking about, really doing some kind of research and having a story that your project is telling of what is this use case? Who is the person in real life that's using this app or that could be using the finished version of this project down the line? So instead of kind of more of like a toy example, really making it something where someone can look at it and say, oh, I can totally understand how someone in real life would use this.
Yeah, the uniqueness is a very big factor, and the sort of like feeling that this is actually usable. Now, given it's a hackathon, it's not going to be perfect, okay? Like,
right,
so
exactly.
Don't worry if you have to put it on rails, right? And you only give it certain inputs. That happens all the time. But people want to see the vision, something different, and it's something useful. So I think, Rahul, you touched a little bit about this, and maybe you can talk about like finding a team. What do you generally go into these with teams, or are you looking to find a team on day of? Or
yeah, and it's evolved after participating in multiple hackathons. The first couple of hackathons, you go in fresh, you don't know what you're working on. And I'm like, I think with the most recent hackathons, Sasha and we met at one of our groups that we are part of. We met at a happy hour and we got talking and we were like, hey, there's a hackathon coming up. Do we want to take part? Right? And that works. To be honest, better than me, I love this group of friends who participates in every hackathon. And they are just, they're just there to participate every time. I've seen them in every hackathon. They're having fun. They're like learning something new, and they're building up what their resume is. So these are undergrads who are participating. I think that is something that is enviable to me, which is, working with a good group of people that you've met and you love working with, and build something new. That being said, you shouldn't start by thinking like, hey, who's a great startup co-founder, and say, okay, I'm going to take part in a hackathon with that person. I think starting a company is a very different endeavor than doing a hackathon. Do a hackathon with people you'd learn something with and enjoy working with. And, it's going to be very intense 8 hours, a very intense week. Just make sure you're having fun,
And Alex, in your 16 victories, do you generally partner up with the same people, or?
So for a bunch of them, I have a crew. So I've met them through hackathons. I'm like, hey, let's do another one. That's always fine. But I've done the whole gamut of things. I've gone solo. I'd highly recommend against going solo because it's a slog. It's very hard. I wouldn't recommend it. It's just an enormous amount of work that you have to put in, pressure to put on yourself. In terms of just what you want to work with, I just recommend find people who you vibe with. Ultimately, it's going to be a test, not so much of your skills, but as much as your patience. As you are in the late hours of the night, 2 in the morning, you're going to be doing something stupid like data labeling. And you want to make sure that the people around you aren't going to go insane. Or maybe you will go insane, but you want the people around you to help you not go insane. So it's really just kind of a vibe check.
I have kind of a follow-up question on that. How would you approach it if you were to go back in time to your very first hackathon? You don't have a crew of people. I imagine that can be really intimidating for a lot of people who are brand new to hackathons. How do I find someone who I'm going to mesh well with? We're going to work well together. They're not going to leave me high and dry, and this isn't going to be like a sixth grade group project where I end up doing all the work and they take half the credit. How do you kind of navigate that in your first hackathon?
So I think like also for a lot of first hackathons, you might not be as skilled or as experienced as a lot of people. And that also presents a challenge of like, okay, I'm not good enough to be on this team. I'd probably say like definitely present yourself in the way of like looking for somebody to kind of guide you to help with things. So I'll say this from like the non-technical angle. If you're like non-technical, I wouldn't lead with that. You just say like, I'm trying to learn. So like, don't say you're not technical, say I'm not yet skilled and I'm trying to progress to a point, and say like, I'm trying to get this skill during the hackathon. I'm happy to do whatever it takes to get the project where it needs to be. I think like somebody who's a team leader is going to understand that you're going to be high velocity and just be able to pick up the steam from there. So yeah, just basically if you're kind of nervous about things, just find somebody who has a vague idea of what they're doing and just say like, I might not be the perfect person for your team, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to do the small bits. You know, even something like making a design or picking a color scheme, or I wouldn't recommend just doing a deck all alone. That's maybe 25% of it, but like definitely just like say, here's a very specific thing I'm going to try to do extremely well at, and that's going to go a very long way.
Do you guys have a name for your, Alex, do you have a name for your team? Your crew calls themselves?
Yeah, not really. Well, one of the hackathons we did was hosted by the Next Web, which is like one of the largest technology conferences in Europe. And we won that, and they flew us out to Amsterdam for 2 weeks to go to that. So we just kind of named our WhatsApp group the Next Web. It has no meaning to it though.
And how many people are in the crew?
It's about 4 of us. And actually, I'll post a little link because this thing was hosted by a hotel company called Trivago, and they did like a whole blog post about our crew for winning this thing. That's another thing, by the way, like you get really good PR. So if you ever want an article about yourself on the internet, or you want some like, internet clout or, fake internet points, definitely you're going to get some articles written about you if you build something cool.
Yeah, with Carolyn's question about how do you go and find people if you're the first time at a hackathon, I'm curious, Yi, when we met during the hackathon a few years ago, you and I didn't know each other, right? And nobody on the team knew each other. What do you think happened there, which got us not just for that particular hackathon, but then we've stayed in touch after, and we've like Yulia and I are really good friends as well. What do you think works well with like what do you think is the glue over there?
Yeah, so amazingly, that was actually my first one ever. I've never like even though I went to college, like it wasn't as big of a thing. I'm a little dating myself. It wasn't as big of a thing back then. So it was my first one ever, and I think I just got really lucky, to be honest. But I think the thing that worked well, and the thing that I think, the other one I won, so I won the one with you, Rahul, and then I won this other one at Shack 15. The thing that I think worked really well in both cases is this sort of like complementary skills, right? So to Alex's point, actually, if you're non-technical, you can be a really huge asset to a lot of these hackathon teams, right? I got so tired of seeing just the same chatbot interface every time that I ended up hosting, and thanks for coming, Rahul. Rahul is a mentor there, hosting this anything but chatbots hackathon, just because it was, like, I think the design, the presentation, the sort of, once again, like helping people actually envision that this could be a real product, that's really important. And so yeah, the one with you, I mean, I think we had a couple of technical folks and a couple of non-technical folks, and that ended up working really well. Rahul's a great presenter. just lucked into it, really. Like I literally just lucked into it. But like I think the presentation probably made a very big difference for us. Yeah, it was, you know, that sort of like having like different skills coming together rather than say, hey, you know what, I can program Python, you can program Python, you know, like having 3 people who are just good Python programmers doesn't necessarily make the best team. And actually, you know, that does bring up the next point, which is like, you talked about this in terms of presentation, Alex. Like what would you say in terms of like the split is between how much you should focus on the presentation and the sort of the UI versus how much you should focus on the technical stuff?
Yeah, so definitely UI makes the magic happen. The number one thing that will make people's eyes gloss over is showing command line. So, well, okay, so if you do have to show command line, I highly encourage you to zoom your screen in. People in the back will not understand a word on that screen. Having a good UX and UI, or having a great UI, is really kind of a good way to visualize what's going on. That's actually why I think Streamlit is a fantastic tool for this, because you have horrible front-end devs like me who do not know how to make nice-looking UIs. Streamlit just does it pretty much instantly. So if you're trying to put data on a web page, definitely use that. But secondarily, like there's a few resources out there. I'm going to post a link in the chat to this app called Slides Carnival. Having like a good slideshow just to like 30 seconds to 1 minute, explain the idea, explain the problem very concisely, goes a very, very long way. In terms of time commitment, I would say like maybe spend like the last 4 hours like working on your slide deck and just make sure that it's a very concise message of what you're trying to sell. One of the biggest challenges I think seen a lot of hackathons, you have very, very technical people, and they're building just insanely smart and brilliant products, but they have a very hard time communicating what they're building. Ultimately, again, like replace product with people. There are people, the judges in the audience, they're your customers, and you have to really relate to them and explain the pain in a way that is going to be obvious, and they're going to understand immediately and be able to summarize in, you know, a sentence. Like what is the problem they solved? This is how they did it. That really goes a far way. So I'd highly recommend just like having a good UI that explains the flow of what your app is doing. Having a slideshow is also very helpful for explaining the problem set. And that's usually most of it. Oh, also rehearse, right? If you're non-technical, but you know, you're a great speaker, spend some time writing down the script and rehearsing the script and making sure you're selling the message. So definitely highly recommend that. A last thing though, I will say like kind of a hacker code of ethics is stay away from slideware, which is just like a slideshow with screenshots or no code whatsoever. Like I think people really do appreciate raw product, even if it's buggy. It goes a long way.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I think the one where I like one hackathon where I felt really like bad about what I built out was I couldn't show the demo at the end. And you know, it worked like maybe 30 minutes before the demo, didn't work at the time of the demo when I was presenting to everybody. And I think that is fine. I don't think I lost because of that, right? What I lost because of was that this demo didn't spark the curiosity, didn't inspire people or get people the hook, right? Like I think the hook will get people like paying attention, but at the same time, you've got to inspire them. There's so many, for example, if your project that you're working on at the hackathon is, let's say, something for social good, right? Great, that's an inspiring message, but it's also about how you inspire people with your slide deck. So first, getting shortlisted with your technology, with your skill set and what you've built, the judges would shortlist you based on that. But when you're presenting, I think like a good presentation steals the cake, right? Like that is definitely well taken. I'm curious from Caroline's side, like what do you think are, from a judge standpoint, or for this hackathon maybe, what do you think are some of the things that people look for?
Yeah, totally. I think that one thing that people don't necessarily think about, especially in a hackathon where you are submitting an app or you're submitting some sort of somewhat finished project that the judge is going to directly interact with, make it as easy as possible for the judges to understand what they should be doing with that app. So the flow of, oh, I should be going here, I should then be clicking this, I should, for example, if you have, let's say that your app takes a file that they have to put in a file uploader, give us a sample file that's, you know, embedded in the app. We can download it from the app, and then we can upload that up there, and we don't have to like create our own. You know, you don't want to say, oh, you need to go create a CSV and add these things, and then you need to go upload it, and then you can kind of demo the app. There's too many like potential points of failure for the judges to not do it in the exact way that you were thinking, and then it's not the process that you were hoping for them to see demoed there. So really like make it super simple for people to interact with your app and understand like the flow they should be following. Ideally, that's clear just from like the design, but you know, if it's not clear from the design, really outline it for them to ensure that the judges are getting the experience that you had envisioned. And I think just minimizing those points of failure where someone might be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be uploading here. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here.
That's great advice. Yeah, keep it simple for people to try. Shubankar, am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's a Shubhankar. Yeah, you're right. So I have this quick question. During the team formation event in any hackathon which I have been to, sometimes I have seen like, you know, you approach people with idea and they might not end up like teaming with you, but you know, they can take that idea and team with other people, or you know, maybe themselves go ahead with that particular idea. So when you pitch your idea, or during a team formation event, when you want to like bring in people to collaborate and work with you, so how would you actually, you know, motivate them to join your team, or in other words, like not spill your idea to anyone else?
That's really important. Alex, you have any tips there?
Yeah, it's if you can't beat them, join them. So at the emergency ChatGPT hackathon, my original idea was basically creating an AI Furby, these little like bird toys. I don't know if anybody remembers them from the 90s. And I spoke with somebody else who said, I want to use AI to create products for my 3-year-old daughter, and maybe like a toy or something. I'm like, okay. So instead of being like combative, it's like we were collaborative. And the idea is like, oh, yes, and what if it had this? Yes, and what if we did the also? Yes, and so if you do kind of the yes and philosophy, you might actually just end up joining forces. Worst case scenario, I think there's only been one hackathon ever I've done where somebody did the exact same thing and better and won. So you know, that's always a little bit embarrassing, but it does help to just kind of schmooze with other people and figure out like what are the other teams doing. So just in case there's like, you know, you have no shot of competition, you know, you're at least aware of it. And I'd honestly say if like something like that happens, just join forces, because you're probably going to learn a lot if somebody has the same idea. They've thought about it for a little while, and they'll help you out.
Makes sense. We have a question from the chat here. So Aja asks, how did participating in a hackathon enhance your problem-solving skills / your career? And here, Rahul, I remember, you know, when we did the hackathon, you were already a very senior data scientist, right? You had a lot of data science experience. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what's made you decide to continue to do them.
Yeah, and so that's a very good point. Like, I think I love the energy that I get when I'm at a hackathon. I love to learn. For me, learning is what winning is. And so when I go to these hackathons, I'm always like looking for what people's perspectives were on a particular topic and what they are bringing to the table, and learn from that. There's no wrong answers in a hackathon. Again, it's not a startup idea. It's not like who's going to walk away with $1 million investment or something like that, right? It's all about what have you learned in the last few years, and can take that, and while contributing to your team, also learn from them. So that's maybe the way I see it.
Yeah, I would echo that. You know, like for me, I've been working on chatbots for 7-8 years. I went to a hackathon this January. I learned more about, you know, ChatGPT than I had during the entirety of my career prior to that. So hackathons are really a learning accelerator.
And the problem-solving skills part of the question, right? I think it's about how much are you willing to acknowledge, like, hey, you don't really, like, there's a different way of doing it in engineering in general, right? I'm speaking from a position of like having led teams in companies. Like, engineering is a team sport, and it is also, there's no right answers. There's always trade-offs. So your answer might be great, but some other person has an idea. You talk to them, why do they want to do this in that way? Learn how they have attempted to solve the problem, and then you just understand one different aspect of, well, this same problem could be solved in a different way. And obviously through that, you learn a new problem solving skill, which is, there's another way of doing it.
Mark asks the question, says, where are we going with hackathons as Gen AI develops over time? How do we advance the tools that inspire new applications? Caroline, can you talk a little bit about that? Because you've done a few, and I'm guessing you're going to do more.
Yeah, definitely. I think that for us, like, hackathons really represent a awesome place for people to come together and like push the boundaries. And a lot of these new Gen AI companies are coming up from side projects that people started out. I mean, I know LangChain, I think LlamaIndex, just started in a GitHub repo.
Exactly.
So I think it's
just,
yeah, it's like kind of the future of how we're starting these companies that are becoming really major players in the Gen AI landscape. So I don't think we're seeing Gen AI hackathons going away anytime soon. I think it's continuing. I mean, every day you look at Ben's Bytes, or you look at any type of like AI newsletter, it's like hackathon. Other company launches a hackathon. So yeah, I think they're important as a way to kind of get people together, get really like smart, crafty, like gritty people together in a room to build things. And that's how we're going to continue to see like large advancements in this field. That's my opinion. I may be biased as part of a company that's running a hackathon, but I think it's a good thing. Not going away anytime soon. So
yeah, use Streamlit and LlamaIndex for sure.
Yeah, we're not.
Even if you have said that, I was going to chip in and say, well, I think one of the awesome things about a hackathon is that you have to develop stuff fast, right? And so tools like LlamaIndex are very helpful. Tools like Streamlit are very helpful. And once you acknowledge, like, hey, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Well, now if you stand on the shoulder of giants kind of a philosophy, which says you have these awesome tools to help you move fast. What are you doing after that, right? Because you're not solving the same problem that they're solving. For example, if you have wanted to build a chat interface, you don't have to spend time or 2 hours, 3 hours building an interface. You have something out there. So now you can spend that time like creating some new value, which nobody else has built out. And so it's more like, I think hackathons are a very nice accelerating factor of innovation, wherein because you're using tools, it's a forcing function. I'm sorry, because you have time crunch, it's a forcing function for you to use tools and build something new and create something unique.
Cool, absolutely. So we're running a little bit short on time. So I think this next question, we're just going to do rapid fire here. Any tips or resources for improving the presentation? So maybe one tip each. Alex, you want to go first?
Yeah, I posted a link to Slides Carnival. I'll post it again. Great resource for finding desks.
Cool. Rahul?
Sorry, I was reading the chat. I missed the question.
Oh yeah, the question is tips or resources to improving the presentation. I know you're really good at this, so.
I think the presentation wise, there was in the hackathon we met, Guy Kawasaki had a very good introduction, like 10. These are the only 10 slides you need. And somehow, I borrow from that, and I'm like, you know what? Let's keep the message simple. There's a lot of stuff you can talk about, but just make sure that the chain of thought in the slides, make sure that you win, right? Like at the end, the last slide, the obvious conclusion for the judges should be, yeah, obviously this is the winner. So that's how you go about it.
Makes sense. Keep it short and to the point. Caroline, any tips for what distinguishes a good presentation versus a bad one?
Yeah, I mean, I already said this, but I think real world relevance, real world use case, like let us know how real people can use this, even if it's the more polished version of whatever you're presenting.
Cool. My tip would be have a live demo if possible. If you can have a live demo, that's like instant, points in my book. Okay. Saren says, and we're just gonna do this once again, rapid fire style. Any specific problem statements? Any hackathon ideas? These folks are doing hackathons right now. Do you have an idea off your list? Alex, you go.
Yeah. So I think that I'm gonna pull up the list. I'll be right back.
Okay, Rahul, you go. Wow, he pulls up the 300.
Yeah, I mean, it's what inspires you, right? Like for me, the last idea I did at a hackathon was super dry for everybody else except me. I built out a chatbot that helps Kubernetes, and like I know that I want it, and so I built it. And at the end of the day, if you really feel passionate about your idea, you can also sell it like with your passion, right? I think that makes what makes a good idea is what you're passionate about and what the other person draws from you or your passion and gets excited about your idea just because you're excited about your idea.
Cool. Caroline.
Yeah, super random, but I'd love to see a game in a Streamlit app using AI.
Nice. My idea for you is education. I've seen a lot of education ideas win hackathons, and I think it's an underexplored space for Gen AI in general. All right.
So I just pulled up 2 ideas for anybody interested in it. So number 1 is using large language models to generate documentation. Most API documentation on the web is horrendous. There needs to be something done with that. Number 2 is either using LLMs or humans to follow documentation and see that it actually works. Also a huge struggle that I have with a ton of things. I think documentation is very underrated and underexplored.
Yeah, makes sense. Good documentation really makes a big difference, especially in open source. Okay, so the last one we're going to end on is, how soon do you think Gen AI codebots will win a Gen AI hackathon? We're just throw out a number. Go ahead, Rahul, you first.
No, I will say from scratch, I don't see that happening in like maybe at least in 1 year. But I loved like when we are doing a hackathon last month, Alex, we were all just using ChatGPT to write our code because it was just faster at doing things in a structured way. And I think it's already there. If you count some of the recent wins, it's already there. It's just about, does it do it itself? And that's for maybe GPT-5, who knows?
Okay, so not soon, fully automated, but sort of like semi-white box is already there. Alex, you go.
Yeah, to get access to code interpreter, or I think it's advanced data analysis right now, you can let just ChatGPT do so much work for you. I agree with that.
Cool. Caroline, what do you think?
I think it depends on who's judging the hackathon. Is AI judging the hackathon? Then probably pretty soon. If not, I don't know. I think we have a while before, because when you're judging a project, if it's really buggy, it doesn't quite work. I feel like you can use AI to get you, 3/4 of the way there, but without that other quarter, like you're probably not winning. You might get pretty close to winning. So I'm gonna say at least 5 years.
Okay, I'm gonna go even longer. I'm gonna say 20 years. But if somebody at the Streamlit Hackathon builds a hackathon bot, that's amazing. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Okay.
I think here, like, it's more like the cops and robbers thing, right? Which is the technology improves, and then people are like, yeah, but then that you're not actually coding it, you're not winning. Our bars are now higher, right? So you kind of have to play catch up all the time.
Exactly. It just levels it up. All right. So on that note, we are out of time. I think this has been a wonderful discussion. We've had some great questions. Caroline has shared the Streamlit Hackathon and the Discord in the chat, but it's also available. What is it? Is it just Streamlit?
Yeah, it's streamlit.io/community/LLM Hackathon 2023. But I will let me put it back in the chat real quick. Let me grab this. I'll just put it back in the chat. There's a shortened link for you, because that link's kind of long.
Right. Okay. So yeah, look forward to seeing everything that you all build, and thanks for joining us. Thank you so much to Rahul and Alex and Caroline for making time this morning. It was a really good discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.